play, you sons of a bitch. Oh, I know, dude. Yeah, Scott was last 7 minutes. Brett, it's a cut. Welcome to this week's edition of Cyclone Insiders alongside Garrett, Kroeger, and Hawn, Wong. I'm your host, Fiddelke. All right, guys, so since the last show last week, Iowa State played one game this past Saturday. They defeated West Virginia. It was 36-32 at half, but Iowa State was able to outscore West Virginia 43-27 in the second half. On their way to what was arguably a blowout and probably one of their second ones of the year. Could have been 3 if they would have handled Texas, but we could talk about that later. But guys, what changed in that second half? And Han, we'll start with you. For Iowa State to be able to outscore West Virginia 43-27.
Yeah, one thing to look at here first, Alan, is Devin Wong, Western Virginia's forward down there. He grabbed 15 rebounds last game versus the Cyclones, which is something Iowa State can't allow. 14 rebounds, a lot of those offensive. But, to start the second half, Devin Williams picked up his second and third fouls within the first minute of this game. So that really hurt West Virginia in the long run, and it allowed for a 14-2 run for the Cyclones. A team that really snowballs on momentum, and so, a lot of key players also contributed to this run. But, one thing I look at is Devin Williams getting into foul trouble, having to come out, so West Virginia had to play a smaller lineup.
Yeah, you mentioned that 14-2 start, that first 7 minutes, that second half. That was big for Iowa State, and also it was a huge blow to West Virginia, like you said, to lose Devin Williams, a guy who was a force on the boards and also in the paint scoring for West Virginia in that first meeting. Garrett, what did you notice in that second half for Iowa State to blow it open 43-27?
Oh, I just noticed what Han noticed about the 14-2 run in the first 7 minutes of the game. That kind of hindered West Virginia's scoring ability. They really came out cold, and Iowa State was able to jump to 50 to 34 points, so that kind of put them in a hole for a little bit. And also, West Virginia had 14 fouls in the second half as well, so that really sent Iowa State to the free throw line to get them 3 points.
Yeah, for me, West Virginia just shot the ball pretty poorly in that second half. On the season, they're 41%, which is already pretty bad, especially ranking-wise. But they shot 31% compared to 45% in the first half and 44% from 3. So shooting 31% just in that second half, only made 9 field goals. I thought that is what really led for Iowa State to be able to bust that open. Give credit to that Iowa State defense that I thought was really slacking in that Oklahoma game before. So, guys, what did Iowa State do well offensively in this game against West Virginia?
Iowa State really did well in this game on offense. Was they converted their field goals and they really converted their free throws this game. Typically, Iowa State's not a great free throw shooting team, but this time around they shot 70% behind the free throw line. They were 20-26, I believe, or something like that, behind the free throw line. So that really helped out. And also from last game, they shot 50% from the field, but this time they shot 56% from the field. So a better shooting game this time for Iowa State against West Virginia.
Absolutely, it was great to see them shoot well. I mean, they didn't shoot really that poorly at West Virginia. Just shot a little better, like you mentioned. Han, what did you notice offensively for Iowa State?
Offensively, I noticed the little things that kind of disturbed me, but at the same time, it was a little good.
Yeah.
One thing I like to point out, Naz Long, not hitting a 3 this game, really only took 2 shots, both from long range, not hitting anything. And then Niang hitting 4 for 10. Not a great game, but again, doing his part to kind of be an offensive kind of something that the defense has to look for. So he's going to do his part into getting the defense to suck in, allowing for more open shots. But the thing I thought Iowa State did well here was getting the bench involved, getting a lot of positive involvement from them. Since Bryce Sean Jones hit the bench, McKay to take over, he scored close to 10 points per game, which he scored this game, but on an impressive 4 for 4 shooting, which that's something that I'm sure Coach Holberg is stressing to Sean Jones. You're coming off the bench. We want you to take good shots, though. Mm-hmm. Another thing, Nate had one of his most impressive games.
Absolutely.
Especially at home. I think this was his most impressive home game, scoring 16 points. And Matt Thomas, even coming off the bench, hitting a big three to end the first half.
Yep, absolutely.
The bench really worked at.
You mentioned two things that you mentioned. I thought with Naz Long, he has a bruised hip. Unfortunately, coach didn't want to use him if he didn't have to in that second half. Obviously, he didn't have to, which was great. So he's hoping for him to be ready for the next up and coming game in Oklahoma State tomorrow, which we will get into later, and the Texas game as well. But also, you mentioned that Abdel Nader having that huge game. But, he's had great road games, especially the notable one against Iowa, but it was good to see him going. What I thought offensively stuck out for me was that they got back to what they're known for, especially being best in the country, and that's fast break points. They had 23 this game, 10 in the first half, which helped attribute to their 32 points in the paint compared to just 20 by a physical West Virginia team. So I thought getting that 23 points in the paint, 23 fast break points when they average 21 on the season. Finally getting back to, I've been hitting on it these last couple weeks that they've been kind of going away from that. Not necessarily going away from, but they haven't been able to get those fast break points. So that's really what stood out for me. But guys, we'll flip sides to the defensive side. What stood out for you defensively for Iowa State in this game?
When I watched the game, it kind of didn't really seem this way, but the Mountaineers actually shot better this game from the field, opposed to when we played them last. But the thing that Iowa State did better defensively was to not let them get to the free throw line as much.
Absolutely.
Last game back in Morgantown, the Mountaineers shot 21 free throws. No, they made 21 free throws on 28 attempts. Not a great number for defense. But in this game, they made 6, shot 12. It's something that Iowa State really wanted to do. It's a major jump for a team that isn't known for being physical, and
absolutely,
especially playing against a physical team. They were able to fight down there in the paint.
I like I said earlier with what Iowa State did well in the second half, especially was that 9 of 29 shooting by West Virginia for 31% in that second half. I credit Iowa State's defense for that. Also, the fast break points are credited by their defense, in my opinion, as well, which I stated that they did well offensively. And they forced 19 turnovers and scored 18 points off of those. Anytime you can make a team like West Virginia turn the ball over more than they can make you turn the ball over, that's good because West Virginia is making teams average 20 or more turnovers a game. And for Iowa State not to turn the ball over that much, what they average, they only turned it over 16 times, which seems like a lot, but for a West Virginia team, that's pretty well. Garrett, what did you notice defensively for Iowa State?
Defensively, I noticed that Iowa State limited West Virginia's offensive rebounding this game.
Yeah.
Last game, West Virginia had 19 offensive rebounds, but in this game, they only had 10 in the whole entire game. So limiting West Virginia's offensive rebounding and now allowing them to get the second chance points really helped out Iowa State.
All right, overall, looking at this game, guys, who would you give that Cyclone game ball to?
I would give it to Nader.
Nader? Okay.
Mostly because he came off the bench and produced in this game. Now, he didn't have the 19 points like Monte Morris did, but he was, I believe, the second leading scorer with 16. And if you look at it, Nader had 2 good games against West Virginia. And his stat lines for both games are very comparable, except for this game he only had 16 points, but he did have 7 rebounds.
Absolutely. I would give credit to Nader. That's probably he's got 3 really good games this year, 2 against West Virginia, like you mentioned, down in Morgantown, his other one being in Iowa, like we talked about. Hawn, other than Abdel Nader, do you have anyone else in mind you give that Cyclone game ball to?
He talked about Abdel and also a little about Monte Morris. He talked a little about McKay. I'm going to switch sides to Monte Morris, actually. He talked about Morris. I'm going to talk about McKay here. Since he started, since he's getting playing time, he's starting, he gets a lot of boards, he gets a lot of blocks, but one thing we can talk about here is 8 from 9 from the free throw line. Something that Hoiberg really loved, he talked about in the postgame, hitting 8 for 9 free throws as, his kryptonite almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's something defenses could look at, say, he's going to get a monster Madrid around, hey, we could foul him, no, he's not going to make his shot.
Hack-a-shack.
Exactly, one of these situations. But, hitting 8 for 9 free throws is something, you can definitely give him the game ball for doing that alone. But he added 5 blocks, he added 12 points, he added 8 rebounds. One thing I didn't enjoy too much, though, was his 5 turnovers. Against West Virginia team, it's a little catastrophic, 5 turnovers. But I'm going to give the game ball to McKay.
Yeah, those 5 blocks were big, especially not having any blocks against Oklahoma the previous game. I didn't pick Monte because that's kind of obvious. You can go with him. Almost a career best if Abdel Nader didn't touch that the rim when Monte hit that deep two. Two that really didn't have great games, but really stuck out to me. You touched on Bryce going 4 for 4, 10 points. He had no turnovers. I think he's accepting his role coming off the bench, and that's what needs to happen for this team to go deep. Not only in the Big 12 tournament, but also in the NCAA tournament. And I just thought he made smart decisions. He didn't turn the ball over. And another guy I want to say is Niang. He's only had 14 points and a total of 7 turnovers in these last 2 games. So for him to come out and get double-digit points, 6 boards, he had those 3 turnovers again this game. I think he's getting really lazy these past couple games ever since that Kansas game. Also in the Kansas game he got lazy as well, but I thought for him to be able to have a good offensive night with 11 points when he only had 14 these last 2 games was really good. So, all right, guys, they sweep West Virginia this season. Close one to Morgantown, blowout in Ames. What did Iowa State do differently this time compared to last time in Morgantown to be able to get that blowout victory?
The difference here was the importance that they stressed on rebounding and defense, like we talked about the defense. Garrett talked a little bit about the rebounding. With a team like Iowa State, your points are going to come. You have experience with Niang and company. They know what to do on offense most of the time. But the broken part of this team is their defense and the rebounding. They're not a huge team. They can't get a lot of the rebounds that most teams in the country can do. But what ISU did this game was they really put a stress on those 2 points, rebounding and defense. And they did win the rebound battle 35 to 31, and that's just a great advantage for the Cyclones, especially against a team like West Virginia that thrives on offensive rebounds and second chances.
Yeah, I thought I touched on it earlier, the fast break points. They only had 4 in the first meeting at West Virginia, compared to 23 this time, above their season average. And I thought they kept West Virginia off the glass offensively, like you mentioned earlier. 19 the first time out compared to 10 this time. That's a huge momentum swinger. You're limiting them multiple shots at a time. Also, I thought they were making someone besides Jawan Staten beat them. He's going to get his shot, his points, his shots. He had 23 the first time, while Devin Williams and Jay Sean Page also scored double figures. So this time, Jawan got obviously above his average. He scored, I think it was 16. He averages I think it's 14 on the year. But no one else had double figures in Hilton, which is something good for Iowa State. Limit, their best players obviously going to get their points. It's just limiting the other players as well, and I thought Iowa State did that very well in Hilton.
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback on you guys about the rebounding situation, just limiting the second chance points and limiting their offensive rebounding. And also, Iowa State, the first game for West Virginia, they shot pretty well, but just improving on their shooting ability, they improved field goal percentage, 3 points made, and free throw percentage. So just the overall shooting helped out for Iowa State as well.
Yeah, I think especially being in your home gym, shooting is always going to improve compared to on the road. I think it's safe to say that, guys. But all right, we're going to take a quick break, and after the break, we will preview the Okie State game tomorrow that will be airing on ESPNU at 8 p.m., and we will preview the Texas game on Saturday that will be on ESPN2 at 1 p.m., and if Iowa State can make the Big 12, eliminate Kansas from winning the regular season Big 12 title. So stay tuned after the break. Welcome back to Cyclone InCYders, still alongside Hawn, Wong, and Garrett, Kroeger. I'm Alan Fiddelke. All right, guys, so we touched on Iowa State's 1 game since we last had this show. Let's talk about the 2 games they have coming up. As I mentioned before break, they go to Okie State tomorrow. It will be on ESPNU at 8 p.m. We'll start with that game, guys. The last time they went to Stillwater, it was a 98-97 triple overtime thriller. But I'm pretty sure everyone in Ames was watching that game, but we'll just jump right to it, guys. Give me one key thing for Oklahoma State that they'll have to do to come away with that home W.
For Oklahoma State, they're really going to have to try to get the ball into LeBron Nash's hands, let him penetrate, let him drive to the rim. In my mind, his production this year, it's always gone up since his freshman year. He is in line, he's in discussion at least for Big 12 Player of the Year.
Absolutely.
As a big physical guy, he's not a great shooter, but with that size, he doesn't have to be a great shooter. He puts it on the floor, and depending on who Hoiberg wants to guard him, whether it's Niang or Hogue, I don't know what's going to happen because Hogue, he doesn't have the size to really guard with Brian Nash, I don't think. He loves guarding those bigger guys, but this matchup, it's a little scary for me. And Niang, he's a little bit slow for LeBron Nash. So I feel like if LeBron Nash has a huge game versus Iowa State, it's going to be a scary one.
Yeah, I think Yang's slow for anyone in my opinion.
That's true.
But I do think I don't know what you think. I think Hogue will start on LeBron Nash. Do you agree? I think just because of his physicality.
Yeah, I agree that Hogue's going to be on LeBron Nash to start out with.
Yeah. So what would you touch on for Oklahoma State to come away with this W?
Oklahoma State to get this W tomorrow night. If you look at it for Iowa State, with all of their losses so far, each team has converted 60% of their free throws. So I do believe if Oklahoma State's able to draw fouls against Iowa State at home and convert over 60%, I believe Oklahoma State will win.
I like that stat. Nice digging deep. They're shooting, I think it's 71% on the season, but who knows? Hopefully Iowa State can play defense with their hands and not commit those stupid fouls. But I think for me, I think it's going to be more support offensively of people not named LeBron Nash and Phil Forte. We know they're going to get their 30-plus points combined in my mind. I think Anthony Hickey or Michael Cobbins, who Michael Cobbins was held scoreless in Ames the last time out, needs to step up and provide more scoring for the Cowboys. So we'll flip it around for ISU guys. Garrett, what does Iowa State have to do? One key thing to be able to come away with this road victory, essentially almost a must-win to remain in contention for this regular season Big 12 title.
I believe that Iowa State to get the W this tomorrow is, I feel like the starting lineup has to improve from their last game. Because if you look at it, the starting lineup didn't really do that much against Oklahoma State the first time around. Like the only person to be in double figures last time was Hogue, and then the second leading scorer was Monte Morris at 8 points. So I believe the starting lineup has to kind of man up and be able to score more often instead of just relying on the bench.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's a little unusual for Iowa State to not have close to 5 people in double figures, let alone only one guy in double figures. So that's something to look for Iowa State. Hawn, what do you think for Iowa State for tomorrow night's victory?
For Iowa State, I feel like their guards are really going to have to get physical in this game. The Iowa State guards, we're looking at Monte Morris, 6'2", Nat Wong, 6'4". We have Deshaun Jones, who's getting close to 6'6". They're a big group of guards here, but if you're looking opposed to OSU, we have, like you said, Cobbins earlier, Hickey, and Phil Forte. They're around 6 foot. I think Cobbins is 6'2". They're a smaller group of guards, so for Iowa State to win this game, they're going to have to exploit how physical they can be, because we know Iowa State, we can be physical down low post, but OK State, they have LeBron Nash, and they have their 6'8" center as well. They're decently physical down there, so I feel like the guards are going to have to step up here.
I think you mentioned that with Phil Forte being so short. I think Monte, especially when they played Kansas, he wanted that job of Trey Mason because he's taller than Mason. He could affect him more, with his height, and I think hopefully he'll be able to do that. Hopefully run Phil Forte off the line. He's shooting about 40% from behind the three-point line, but I think for me, it's the same thing with what Oklahoma State's going to have to do to get that W. Iowa State's going to have to take that away. I think Iowa State's going to have to make someone other than Phil Forte and LeBron Nash beat them. Force other Cowboys to make shots. So I think they really have to zone in on LeBron Nash and Phil Forte. Don't get flustered if they get those 10, 12 points, because they're going to get their double-figure scoring, but try to make other people beat them, which they found successful for them last time Oklahoma State came to Hilton. So, all right, guys. Real quick, what are your predictions for this game? Iowa State or Oklahoma State?
I'm going to go with Iowa State 78-70.
Iowa State 78-70. All right, sounds good. And Hawn, what do you got?
Yeah, pretty close there. Iowa State a little bit less, going 74-70.
74-70 ISU. All right, it's a clean sweep across the board, guys. I'm going to go with Iowa State 81-74. I just don't think Oklahoma State has enough offensive firepower, almost like a West Virginia team that sometimes struggles to score the ball. All right, guys, let's move forward to the Texas game. Iowa State will travel to Austin on Saturday to take on the Texas Longhorns. That'll be on ESPN2 at 1 p.m. Last time out, guys, 89. I think it was an 89-86 victory. A lot closer, as you guys know, than what the final score indicates. Iowa State blew a huge 21-point lead with just about 8 minutes left to go. Guys, just like the Oklahoma State game, give me one thing that Texas will have to do at home to get this W.
If you look at Texas' last matchup against Iowa State, at the half it was a pretty close game. Not as much scoring as you'd see the final score the first half of that game didn't reflect the second half. There was a lot of points in that second half. But for Texas to win this game, I feel like they're just going to have to take their time, slow down the game, maybe put it in their half court, and just set their own tempo opposed to Iowa State's tempo, which you said scoring 21 points in the fast break. It's crazy amount for any team to catch up with. And, just to find their post mismatches. In their last matchup against Iowa State, freshman Miles Teller, he came in as a highly tutored recruit, but he's not making that big of an impact against Iowa State, though. He came off the bench to score 16 points, a lot of those coming in the first half, due to the mismatches Iowa State presents. And if they could find that same mismatch in this game, I feel like Texas could come out with a W.
Yeah, Miles Turner was just a huge force in that paint, making almost everything in that first half, especially like you talked about. Garrett, give me one thing for Texas.
I believe Cameron Ridley has to have a better game than he did last time. Cameron Ridley, who is a monster of a man in the post for Texas, usually averages 9 points per game and 5 rebounds. But against Iowa State, he only was held to 4 points per game for that game and only 1 rebound. So I believe Cameron Ridley has to come up big this time for Texas at home.
I think for me, Texas, they have to control everything that they can control inside that painted area. That's getting offensive rebounds and scoring with those extra chances, and then also packing in that paint. Iowa State likes to, let them live and die by the three. You saw Iowa State has died by the three. They've also lived with it. You just got to take your chance. You got to take something away. So why not pack in that zone? Let them shoot from outside the three. So I just think they're going to have to control everything offensively and defensively inside that paint, because they're a massive force. They threw that 2-3 zone against Iowa State that first time out. They had success the first couple minutes early, but Iowa State figured it out, getting that guy high post and turning around right away and getting that backdoor cut. So, all right, guys, flip side's Hawn, Iowa State. What are they going to have to do, I think, for another must-win victory down in Texas on Saturday?
For Iowa State, let's look at this Texas team one more time. You were talking about Ridley earlier. This Texas team is built upon the big men like Ridley, Holmes, Turner, even Lambert. I feel like Iowa State, they got to stay close with Texas in this game in the first half at least, with just solid rebounding and sound defense. I like McKay's interview earlier. He said he likes backing up his team. He likes backing up his guys.
Absolutely.
I feel like they're going to have to build upon that and, just take pride in their defense. Back each other up in that first half, because although Texas has those big men, they're going to get tired in that second half. Something that Texas they can't allow, because if you look at the game last time against Iowa State, Isaiah Taylor and Javon Felix, they combined for 37 points. That's not going to happen in most games.
Most likely
most games, those two are not going to combine for 37 points. So if Iowa State can get those big men tired, like most big men can get, their guards aren't going to be able to step up, and we're going to come away with a victory.
Yeah, for me, I think it's just going to have to be 5 players. I don't care who it is, are going to have to score double figures. Iowa State's 10-0 this season when that happens. Expect Yang, Bryce Jones, and McKay to get their double figure scoring. So for me, who's going to be those next 2 guys to step up between Long, who might still be nursing that bruised hip? Is it going to be Monte Morris, who had his almost a career high this last time out? Is it going to be Hogue, who can have a big game? He had one recently against Oklahoma. Or is it going to be Nader, who's kind of been 3 great games so far this season? That's about it. Or is it going to be Thomas off the bench? He said after that West Virginia game, he only had 6 points, but he told Fred that he has his confidence back now. So I want to know who's going to be that one to step up. I think it might be Morris for sure for one of those 2 spots. He's been after that Oklahoma game, he had a Snapchat that he was in the gym putting up shots at 2 in the morning. Fred talked about that. That's huge for someone who has been in the shooting slump, and it showed for Monte. So for me, 5 players are going to have to score in double figures. The 3 that are going to get it. Who's going to be those other 2?
Who's the other 2?
Who do you think should be those 2? Between Long, Morris, Hogue, Nader, Thomas? Who do you
last
think?
game, if you look at it, Long didn't have the double figure.
Absolutely.
And
With
since
that
he
bruised
is
hip,
here,
yep.
so I doubt that he will. But I'm going to say McKay probably will. And, I'm going to say Nader, because I feel like Nader, because he can come off the bench and score.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he will get time because he is a big, he's somewhat big for Iowa State. and they might need him to play more. So I feel like he will produce this game.
Who do you think will be that fifth? I mean, I had Niang, Bryce, John Jones, and McKay for sure. You said Nader.
Yeah,
Do you think?
McKay.
Do you think Morris, Ho, Tom? Do you think maybe Thomas might be in
I
that
would like
game?
to see Thomas.
I think the whole Cyclone Nation would like to see that.
Yeah,
honestly.
sure. Because he has been in a song. Well, I'm going to go with Morris because I believe Morris had, 20 points against Texas?
I think so, close to that last time out. Yep.
So I'll go with Morris.
All right. What do you think? You know Niang, Bryce, McKay. In my opinion, you're going to get those. Who do you think the other two will be from this list?
Looking at the list, I think the other two are going to come. One with Morris. He had a fantastic game against West Virginia. And if you look back at last season, when Morris finally got the starting nod, he started to pick it up, especially late in the season. Hopefully Morris could again pick it up late in the season to kind of lead this Cyclone team. And opposed to what Garrett said, I'm going to choose Wong here. I feel like Wong's really got that Lion's heart when he says to himself, I didn't have a good game. I really need to work on my game, just as Morris did. I feel like Wong's really going to work on his game, get in top shape for these two matchups against Oklahoma State. And in this Texas game, I feel like Wong's going to be that fifth man.
I think it could be anybody with those guys off the bench. Anybody can score. I mean, you saw it Hogue, especially against the eventual national champions in the tournament last year, going off. So, all right, guys, what are your predictions for that game on Saturday? Arguably, every game for Iowa State from here on out is a must-win to contend with that Big 12 regular season title, which we will get into. But what are your predictions, guys, for Saturday?
I actually believe it's going to be a blowout by Iowa State.
You think it's going to be a blowout by Iowa State? Okay.
Because if you look at it, the last 3 games for Texas, they've only put up 56 against Texas Tech, only 66 against TCU, and 61 against K-State. And Iowa State was able to put up more than 70 on each of those 3 teams. So I believe Iowa State's going to win 78-64.
78-64. All right. Well, Han, are you sticking with Iowa State as well, or are you going Texas?
I am going to go Texas here. I like the box scores you're putting up in those last 3 games for Texas, but I just feel like there's a lot of physicality against Texas for Iowa State, and I don't know if they're going to match up and stand it. So I'm going to go Texas 78 to Iowa State 72.
All right, you're going to go UT. Iowa State is 1-11 all time. In Austin, it's for me. I'm going to say it's going to be 1-12. Unfortunately, once again, I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to go 82-80 Texas. But I guess we'll see come Saturday. All right, guys. Before we wrap up this show, right now, looking at the Big 12 standings, something I also got a little present last night. Sincerely, from Juwan State and the West Virginia Mountaineers. They've defeated Kansas 62-61. Juwan Satan had basically a top 10 spin move for the game-winning layup. Perry Ellis, he must not have learned fundamentals in high school to use the backboard on the layup. Missed the finger roll. Guys, right now Kansas is 10-3 in the Big 12 standings. Iowa State is 8-4. Kansas has 2 road games left, 3 home. Iowa State has a daunting schedule with 4 road games, 2 home. Guys, do you see Iowa State pulling out a regular season Big 12 title? Because it seems like they might be the only team that might be able to pull this off.
Unfortunately not, to be honest with you. I actually do see Iowa State losing at least 2 to 3 more games for the rest of the season.
Where do you see those 2 to 3 losses? You got, we know the Oklahoma State and Texas. They host Baylor, they go to Kansas State, and then they host Oklahoma, and then they finish at TCU.
I can see them losing Baylor and Oklahoma for sure, because Oklahoma's a really good team. But a sleeper, like dark horse game, in my opinion, like a toss-up, is TCU, because TCU is very underrated.
Yeah.
And it's at TCU. TCU is able to beat some top talent at their place, so
Yeah.
I can potentially see Iowa State losing to
Yeah,
TCU.
they got that funky home court now because they're getting a new place. So they're playing in a high school gym, which is a little different. But I'm a little surprised that you see Iowa State possibly dropping 2 home games when they've only dropped 2 in the last 2 years. Two guys only named Kansas.
That's true.
But all right, we'll see. Han, do you see Iowa State possibly being able to win a Big 12 regular season title this year?
I'm going to have to agree with Garrett. I don't. I feel like Iowa State's going to be just 1 game down for that at least tie with Kansas. I see Iowa State winning against Ohio State, like I called it earlier, losing to Texas away. I'm going to say Baylor, again, with Garrett here at home. Iowa State's first home loss of the season. Baylor with Rico Gathers, he's been such a dominant force. It's like a Steven Ridley almost times, 5 right now. He's a big boy down there.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to disagree with, what'd you say, Oklahoma?
He said Oklahoma at home.
I'm going to disagree against Oklahoma. They defend the home court, though. If they do lose to Baylor, they're definitely going to come back strong against Oklahoma. And at K-State and at TU, those are just going to be maybe not easy games, but just games they grind out.
Games they grind out. I'm going to have to say right now, until I see what unfolds this week for Iowa State, I'm going to have to say no. I did say last week that Kansas was going to lose their remaining away games, which is at K-State, which is only a 48-hour turnaround after they host TCU, and I think they will lose at OU, which will put them at 10-5. So for Iowa State to really have a chance, because I don't know exactly how tiebreakers work. I really don't see Iowa State winning a tiebreaker against Kansas. With that being said, Iowa State will have to win out. In my theory of Kansas losing 2 more games, Iowa State would have to win out. I don't see them. I already said I don't see them winning at Texas. I just don't understand you guys seeing them losing at home at all. I don't see Iowa State losing at home, but I do see them slipping up at Texas. And a dark horse game, like you said, at TCU at the end of the year, I could see that being a slip up, especially if Iowa State is already out of contention for that regular season Big 12 title. But in my opinion, unless Kansas slips up at home, which they almost slipped up against hosting Baylor I think it was on Saturday, so that might be possibly a slip up at home against Texas, possibly a West Virginia team that just beat them going in the fog. They might have confidence, but like I said, another week or two, we might know a little more. So, all right, guys. Well, we appreciate you guys for joining us on this week's edition of Cyclone Insiders. Join us next week as we recap the results of the results of the Oklahoma State and Texas game and preview the home matchup against Baylor and another road test at the Octagon in Kansas State. Have a good night.